Good evening. We'll call to order the September 16th, 2021 meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission. This virtual meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N0821 issued on June 11th, 2021, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Consistent with the order, this virtual meeting provides a safe environment for staff, planning commissioners, and the public while allowing for public participation. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. All written comments submitted in advance of the meeting have already been provided to the Commission. For those who did not provide written comments, a call-in telephone number was provided on the agenda, which can be viewed online at www.brisbaneca.org/meetings. The phone number and instructions will also be provided during the meeting. Participants in the Zoom webinar may make their comments through Zoom. Please note that Zoom participants will only be able to address the Commission verbally. I will announce time limits for public comment during the particular item as necessary. Staff, can you please call roll?
Yes, Commissioner Sayasan.
Here.
Commissioner Patel.
Here.
Commissioner Gooding, Chair Gooding.
Here.
And I'll note that Commissioner Gomez is trying to get in, so he'll be joining us shortly. And Commissioner Funke is away this evening.
And I believe, as we discussed earlier, that Commissioner Gomez will be recusing himself from the first item on the agenda and then joining in deliberations thereafter.
Right.
All righty. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
I hope so. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Let's see, are there any members of the public or any commissioners who would like to remove any item from the consent calendar? The staff will post the text and call number on the screen, and we will start a timer for 30 seconds. If any Zoom participants want to pull an item from the consent calendar, they can raise their hand by pressing the raise hand button or by pressing *9 on their phone if they have called in. So we're starting a timer for 30 seconds. Meanwhile, commissioners, are there any items that any of you would like to remove from the consent calendar?
No.
No.
Hearing none, we'll wait for the 30 seconds to elapse.
5 seconds left. Okay, that's 30 seconds has elapsed.
Very good, thank you. In that case, may I have a motion, please, to adopt the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
And I'll second.
All right, staff, can you call the roll, please? For a voice vote?
Yeah, I think we'll just say aye since we all agree.
All right. All right, the motion is carried. The oral comments, we are at this point accepting oral comments on any items not on the agenda that can be called in by calling the teleconference number in the next 1 minute or by participants in the Zoom webinar. The staff will please display the call-in number on the screen, and any Zoom participants should raise their hand to indicate to staff that they would like to address the Commission on any items not on the agenda. Callers must press *9 to raise their hand, and the staff will please set a timer for 1 minute. while that's running, I believe we have received a written item on one of the agenda items tonight that we acknowledge on the first item on the agenda for, I think it's 296 San Benito. And staff, were there any additional written communications received since that time?
There have not been.
Thank you.
Excuse me, through the chair. The Commissioner Gomez is trying to get into the meeting. We're having some difficulty doing that.
No, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
All right, I got in. It was just, there was something weird happened. I took like 10 times for that link to work. Sorry.
Okay. And 1 minute has elapsed.
Very good, thank you. How do we want to handle either Robbie or Ken where an Apollo is put virtually while we deliberate the first item that will be coming up shortly?
Right. So when that comes up, he will recuse himself and turn off his mic and his screen, but he'll still be there live, so he doesn't have to go find a link again.
Okay.
And then he is allowed to comment if he so chooses as a member of the public during that time. So he can come in if he'd like at that point in time.
Very good. Very good. All right. In that case, I think we're on to new and old business. And staff, if you can ask for may I ask for your presentation, please?
Yes, and let me share a screen here. I started at the end. Bear with me. Okay, so the application is for the Planning Commission to recommend to the city engineer approval of the grading permit for 296 San Benito Road. This is required since the project would be more than 250 cubic yards of grading and more than 50 cubic yards of export of soil offsite. This would be to allow for the demolition of the existing single-family home and construction of a new home with an attached garage and an accessory dwelling unit. The image here shows the topographic map of existing conditions on the left. In the middle is the proposed new conditions, and then the right side shows the excavation cross sections through the house. And just note here that excavation is really primarily just at the house footprint and not a whole lot outside of that. By way of background, the property is a 2,300 square foot corner lot and has an existing single story, single family home. That's approximately 1,100 square feet. It has non-conforming parking. It has no garage. The lot has an approximately 11% upslope, and that's measured from the lot line at San Benito Road to the back of the lot. That would increase to approximately 15 or 16% if one were to take into account the 3-foot retaining wall at the site frontage. But that retaining wall is actually outside of the site, so we don't count it in the calculation, but it is significant in their excavation needs. The site also contains one olive tree, and there are no street trees along the frontage of the site. The proposed project would replace the existing home with the new 2-story home, or 3-story if you were to count the garage and ADU at the basement level. It would be 1,061 square feet of living space, above a 548 square foot basement garage and a studio accessory dwelling unit of 376 square feet. The proposed plan would accommodate two full-size garage spaces, which meets the current parking requirements in itself. In addition, though, beyond the minimum code requirement, there would be an additional 2 compact parking spaces in the driveway. The existing street spaces along Glen Parkway side would also remain. The driveway at the rear of the existing home on the Glen Parkway side would be removed and replaced with a new driveway at the front of the site at San Benito. This would result in cut from a section of the 3-foot high retaining wall for the driveway leading into the garage. As I mentioned, the ADU would also be at the basement level, and it would require a cut into the slope, but would be stepped up from the garage level, as you can see in this cross section here. So the proposed applicant has proposed the excavation of 365 cubic yards of soil, and that's to be exported from the site to accommodate mostly the driveway, the garage, and the ADU footprint. The front retaining wall within the public right-of-way would be reconstructed, and a portion of it set back about a foot farther from the street improvements towards the house. It just shows an outside view of the couple sides of the house. The proposal complies with all applicable development standards and would eliminate the existing nonconformity for parking as well as the nonconformity for lot coverage. And that is that it's at 49% coverage, it's over the 40% development standard. The table of the key project data was provided in your agenda report, and the project meets all of the applicable development standards. In terms of findings, to provide a recommendation to the city engineer, in 2003, the Planning Commission adopted guidelines, which included 4 findings. 2 of those are not applicable since they pertain to properties, in one case within the San Bruno Mountain Habitat Conservation Plan area, which this site doesn't sit in that area, and also a removal of street trees or protected species or 3 or more trees. The other 2 findings are that the proposed grading is minimized and designed to reflect or fit comfortably with the natural topography. And the proposed grading is designed to avoid large exposed retaining walls. And the proposal meets both of these findings. There are no large retaining walls. The largest wall would be reconstructed wall of approximately 3 foot, little over 3 foot, at the front of the site. On the finding of grading being minimized and designed to reflect or fit comfortably with the topography, both the garage and ADU would be within the cut area to be partially below grade. So this modestly sized house would be nestled into the lot. The topography outside the footprint of the house will be largely unchanged. Grading is also minimized as appropriate to meet the height requirement of the house of 28 feet and is stepped up to the rear of the lot in the ADU area. The grading cut at the front of the site would allow for the driveway, as I mentioned, and it would bring that grade down closer to the street level and make that a more functional, usable driveway versus having a steep driveway approach. In closing, this grading review application has been reviewed by the city engineer, building department, North County Fire Authority, and there were no exceptions or comments. Redevelopment of the property would also be subject to building, grading, and encroachment permits. And so in closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission conditionally approve grading permit 2021 EX3, the adoption of the resolution. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Ken. See, just going around the horn here, Commissioner Patel, do you have any questions or comments for staff?
And what's the maximum height it could be? Is 28 feet the maximum, or is it 30 that it could be?
It is actually 28 for this lot. Certain lots that have a steeper slope, if it's 20 50% slope or more,
Mhm.
can be a 30-foot height limit, but in this case, it's under that threshold, so it's a 28-foot height limit.
Oh, okay. I have no other questions, sorry. I was just wondering about that.
Commissioner Sayasan, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Ken. So I understand that the applicant doesn't need to provide driveway parking, but since they are planning to put one to have parking spaces for 2 cars, is there a minimum size requirements for driveways?
There is not. This was more staff's comment that one could park in that driveway, but it's not a required driveway space. If it had been, it would be still okay to do, subject to city engineer approval. So a vehicle can straddle the property line and the public right of way, subject to city engineer approval. And he had no concerns raised on this. And actually, we would give credit for those towards meeting parking standards if they were needed. So this, yeah, go ahead.
But any car still couldn't go into the sidewalk, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they should not be blocking the sidewalk with the vehicles. So,
And how long is that driveway? I don't know if I'm correct, but I counted like about 12.5 feet with the going into the public right of way. It would be like about 12.5 feet. Is that correct?
I'd have to double check what that is. It is,
Okay.
It is fairly short.
Right, because I think your report mentioned that only compact cars could probably fit in there.
Correct. Yeah, and there'd probably be some overlap. So it's yeah. And they also have street parking as well, which is also over what the requirement would be.
And my other question is, so I guess when this house was built, it encroached on the public right of way already. I know, back then people kind of, didn't have any real building codes or whatnot back then. But now that they're demolishing their house and building a new, I'm wondering why that encroachment, why the encroachment in the public right of way would be allowed to continue. So
What encroachment?
well, you stated that in their plans, they would be seeking an encroachment permit, right? Because they were going into the public right of way.
Any time there's, well, I'm going to take a step out here and say that any house that is constructed in Brisbane at some point is going to have an encroachment permit. The encroachment permit is essentially a permit. It can be used for blocking off a street on narrower streets further up the hill where you have to actually have equipment. So it could be used for that. It could be used for a simple kind of reconstruction of a wall, as in this case, or construction and for utilities. It's essentially a permit that the city engineer issues to say, here's the work that you're going to do. Here's what kind of traffic controls if needed, and further details like that. So an encroachment permit is not unusual.
So it's not a permanent encroachment. I thought it was because they needed to extend their driveway about 2.5 feet as well as chain with no. Okay,
No, it has nothing to do with the driveway. It's,
okay.
It would be essentially for a reconstruction of the wall that would still extend into the public right of way.
So the wall is.
So you still have the retaining wall that's about 3 feet high. And it's currently within the right of way. It's not on the site. And it's going to be pushed back closer to the site, but it's still going to be within the public right of way. Just, I think it was going to be pushed back about 1 foot to 1.5 feet closer into the site and kind of squared up the front of the site. So that would be something that would require an encroachment permit. And the city engineer That's his discretion to issue, and he is, as I say, reviewed this and had no concerns.
Okay,
And it is common. It's common for people to have retaining walls that are in support of their house, their development, but are actually in the public right of way.
so even on new constructions? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a couple questions, and one of them is about I was driving by the site earlier or yesterday, and there are some existing there's very stone-looking retaining walls on the San Benito side of the property. Are those remaining or being shored up or changed?
That's what so that's what's being talked about as being being changed essentially and pushed back into the site. And I know we have Jim Trotter, who's the applicant and the architect for this, and he
Okay.
could probably address further that detail.
Great. We'll ask him that then. So essentially, this building, this new proposed building, meets the height limit requirement, basically because there's being a fair amount of excavation done to lower the level of the basement, so that the total 3 floors still comes in under the height requirement, correct?
Right.
And where's just for my education, rather than really about this permit, where's the height measured from? What's the zero line for the height?
So there's a couple locations where it's measured from. At the leading edge of the building, it's actually measured within a zone of 5 feet downslope from that edge. So it's not at the building edge on that most downslope segment of the building. And then it's measured up to, in this case, we measure it to the guardrail for that roof deck in the first segment. And then as you move back into the site, it's measured along the wall plane for each new segment. And it allows for homes to step up the hillside.
Okay. And so just for the public listening here, all neighbors within X feet were notified of this proposed development.
That's correct.
I know in the public correspondence, we've had one positive correspondence, and apparently no negative or questioning correspondence. Okay.
Oh, I just have a quick question. Sorry. When you're done, Doug.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
So if you're measuring you said 5 feet downslope for the 28 feet, then that would mean that the actual building would be, if you measured it just on the building, it would be less than 28 feet, right? Something like that.
Correct, for just that first segment, the front segment, which actually the front segment is closer to 21, I think, 21, 22 feet, somewhere in there. It's not till you step up deeper into the site with the next or the third segment that the height is at the 28 foot.
Okay.
So is each floor approximately 10 feet then? It's 3 floors, right?
3 floors, and the garage segment is, but then the living spaces are not. And they vary from, I think the highest ceiling height in a living space was, I believe it was the main living area at about 9.5 feet, but the others are actually shorter than that.
Okay, Commissioner Sayasan, any more questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. It sounds like the commissioner's questions are done. We will now open the public hearing. And do we have an applicant who would like to present at all?
I guess it's my turn at this point. Oh, hello. Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was having trouble earlier trying to figure out if I was a panelist or an attendee. So I wasn't seeing anything for about half the meeting. but I think I can see most of the stuff now. So I think I want to answer, I guess there's a question about, I didn't expect a question about the rock wall on the edge, but if you want me to answer that question, I can as part of this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm basically, I think what Ken's presenting is fine. I don't feel like I need to give a lot of detail, but there was a lot of time spent on this project to really think about, well, obviously my client's needs. And part of it was professional, why they wanted the garage the way they had it. Because he has a van, which he does for his work, uses for his work. He wants to store it in that garage. But the design was intentionally supposed to be stepped back as much as we could. It's a substandard lot, so there's only so much of a footprint that we could build off of for really a modest sized house with a garage. So we were very happy to be able to make it work as it did. The wall on the edge that we're talking about, I guess, I'll be honest with you, we'll leave as much of it as is if it makes sense. But during excavation, it's very likely that someone will get damaged, need to be repaired anyways. So I just want to make it clear that what we do on the edge will either be an improvement on what you see, or maybe push back a little further. I mean, it really depends what happens during excavation. But our intent is to keep as much of that edge wall as we can, partly because it works well for other landscaping purposes for the pathway that you show on the side along Glen Park, going up to the entrance where the stairs are. It works well with the entrance for the garage and everything else. So what Ken was talking about, the right of way, we really didn't expect to have extra parking space in the driveway. That was a bonus. So we are adapting to the site as is, with the purpose of that garage really being the main place for their cars and van. So I'm not sure if there's anything else to answer, but I feel like what we're doing here is addressing a real need in Brisbane for these substandard lots to have a home that works in this day and age where it's hard to have a certain size home with the limitations out there. And San Benito is a good example of where there's a lot of these substandard lots, by the way, where there's not even a real sidewalk actually. And they're very tight lots. So we're happy to see this plan work out, and the grading was really critical to make this happen. So.
Are the applicants also here tonight, or is it sort of you speaking on their behalf?
Well, Paul wasn't, he's here. To be honest, he might be as confused as I was being on here, but I saw him as an attendee somewhere, I think on a list. He was asking me to speak for him.
That's fine. That's fine.
If he wants to join in, he's welcome to, obviously.
I just want to add one sort of a
Homeowners
side-
are now allowed to talk if they want to talk.
Sure. My question is pretty simple and basic, and it's not I don't think crucial to our decision, but is there any specific intended purpose at this point to the ADU in terms of being rented out long-term or short-term or family, or any sort of sense of what that intention is?
Paul, if you want to speak up, feel free. My understanding from what they talked about with me is they want the option to be able to rent. And for practical purposes of the cost of construction and everything else going on, it is very helpful for a lot of families, including Paul and Glenda, to have the option to rent because the cost of everything else going on, it helps to have a renter. But I think they also really want it for themselves as an option for guests. I think they like that flexibility.
If Paul and Glenda want to speak, I do see their mute is on,
Yeah.
but
If the applicants wish to speak, they're free to do so at this point. If not, that's fine too.
This is Paul Jimenez.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. So yeah, the ADU would definitely be nothing as far as like a short-term rental, anything like shady as far as like the businesses that are out there like that. It would be definitely either a long-term rental used for us if we have like kind of like a guest dwelling. I have family that we both have family that live farther away when they come in, and then also possibly multi-generational if we need to move an elderly parent or whatnot into the space, we would have that as an option.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Alrighty, it's time for any other public comment, I think. Staff, if you can please display a call-in number. And folks can either use that call-in number on the Zoom webinar or press *9 to raise their hand for callers. And we will start a timer for 2 minutes to see if we get any folks who want to comment on this agenda item.
Through the chair, can I ask Mr. Trotter a question?
Sure.
Yeah, I asked staff this question. I was wondering if you could, if you know the answer. How long is that driveway?
Well, unfortunately, the way I set up for this meeting, I didn't put the plan next to me, so I'll have to remind myself, to be honest with you. But this is my experience with Brisbane in the past with driveways here, that when there's no sidewalk, the code allows for a car to be able to park in areas, including the right of way, when there's no sidewalk, where it's not impeding anyone on a sidewalk. You're allowed that space to count as part of the parking space. So I'll be honest with you, we did not intend this necessarily for parking. It really was what driveway was left after we set back the garage, the distance we thought we could set it back from San Benito. So it might be, I'll be honest with you, I have to double check. If you give me time, I can look it up. It'll take me a few minutes.
Okay, because my question is, the house is right next to the school, and whether it's this owner or future owners of the home, one day somebody's going to park a car that's not a compact car. It could be a sedan, it could be an SUV, or a work van, and if there's a driveway, they're going to park a car there. And my concern is that a car will jet out into that sidewalk. And when kids are walking, going back home from school or this and that, you're going to have school traffic, and that potentially might pose a hazard. So since you're building this, this whole new development, my concern is there a way for us to do this right and potentially, stave off a potential issue here?
Well, okay. The way I look at this, so you understand, is that I look at the plans again to remind myself. We set back the garage 10 feet from the property line. That is what's allowed by the code for zoning purposes. And that's what it is right now in our plans. We never intended this for parking for cars. And Ken kind of mentioned it as a bonus because of the way we're situated from the actual street. The street itself is a good distance from the property line. And it's fairly wide here, distance from the property line to the street. There is actually no official sidewalk in this area. So honestly, we don't see this as parking. And it's not really, in my opinion, my client's responsibility to, say to other people they can't park there. I mean, it's kind of assumed, and they don't tend to use it as parking. The only thing that would change things actually is if a sidewalk is put on San Benito, where it could be put in the right of way, and then it'd be clear that you could not put cars there. As far as I understand it, that's the way I would interpret what your concerns are, Pamela. So, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So wait, so you're saying there's no sidewalk on there? I thought I saw that there's something there for folks to walk past.
Well, in San Benito, as far as I could tell, there's no actual built-out sidewalk. There is a sidewalk on Glen Park, but then it stops out of a handicap ramp right at the corner. So, I mean, this is outside of our property lines, and we really are designing within what is allowed in the zoning for the setback in the front for the garage being where it is, with the intent of all our parking being inside the garage. So, and as far as like, I'm not sure what else we can do, to be honest with you, from our perspective as, me as the designer and my clients, their property, within their property, so.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
And if you, go ahead. Sorry, Pamela.
No, I have no
Alright.
other comments. Thank you.
I have a question for Ken.
Go ahead.
I mean, in theory, they could have made the entire bottom section or top section an ADU, right? I mean, they didn't have to have a garage at all at some point.
No,
They could have designed it. They could have designed it that way. They didn't design it that way, but they could have. Right?
no, that's, they needed a 2-car garage. They needed 2 covered spaces for this
Okay.
development.
Okay. So I guess
But I
answer-
don't see how you avoid having a driveway and having parking on the site.
So I guess the
There's-
answer really is if anyone blocks the sidewalk, they just have to call the city and be like, hey, there's a school here and it's blocking the sidewalk, and then nothing will happen for 14 days and it'll probably resolve itself. Right?
Well, I think you, if you hit that domino, you'd go all the way up the street, basically.
Yeah.
Because I think this is the fact is we have narrow streets and steep narrow streets in Brisbane, and much of it does not have sidewalks. My recollection is that the other side of this street does have a sidewalk that
Yes.
Kids would more likely switch over to going to school than on this side. Anecdotally, that's what me and my kids did when we were going to that school. So,
All right. Any other questions of Mr. Trotter? Have we had any public folks dial in or raise their hand?
Yes, we have 2. I'm gonna start with Barbara Ebel, and Barbara, I'm gonna allow you to talk now, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, I just had 2 questions. One is I noticed that the height of the garage portion was higher than typical. And I was just kind of wondering if you didn't mind me bouncing it off of Mr. Trotter, why that decision, because that, drives at least some portion of the excavation. And my other question is for staff. It's just a question because my memory is betraying me. I know it seems like this building covers up more of the lot than the previous building, but it's numerically comes in lower because the garage is exempt from the FAR. And I don't remember is that always been the case, or is that new?
So I'll start at this. So only a portion of the garage, 200 square feet, is exempt from the floor area ratio. And the floor area ratio is actually well below what we allow for. And that's not a new thing. It's been in place for a while.
Just my memory then. Thank you.
Do I need, should I be answering the question, I guess? I forgot, I don't remember her name, I'm sorry. But I'm sorry, I didn't hear Ken, did you say something?
Barbara.
Well, Barbara, sorry, Barbara. But yeah, I understand your concern. The footprint of the building actually is literally the footprint that's allowed at 40% when we worked out the footprint for the lot coverage. The original house, I think, was actually bigger, believe it or not, than the 40%. So this is actually, believe it or not, smaller, even though it might not seem like it. But the garage height was really a very specific requirement for my client, partly because, again, tied to his professional work. He wanted a little more space in the garage for his van, which he uses professionally. So that is part of the reason for the height of the garage. In that, with that consideration in mind, we actually really did everything we could to work the height for this house to be a normal sized, scoped house with the garage at the size it was. And we think that we mitigated any concerns about grading by raising the ADU a little higher in the back. So that stepped up portion lessens the amount of grading as opposed to having the ADU also as high as the garage. So as you go up the hill. I don't know if that answers your question completely, Barbara, but hopefully that helps.
Barbara, any further questions?
No, that's fine. I mean, I still think I'd like to follow up with staff maybe later about it's not important, never mind. And then I was just going to say, Mr. Trotter, if you'd like to stay for my presentation later, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I'll see if I can do that.
All righty. Ken or Robbie, I think there's one more public.
Yes, we have one other person here. It looks like Luke Bachard. Please state your name, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
Thank you very much, members of the Planning Commission and staff. It's a pleasure to address you tonight. I just wanted to put my support behind this project. Having worked with Mr. Trotter as our architect in the room, actually the house that I'm in right now, the virtual background behind here is not his, but the real room I'm in is his creation, and he does beautiful work. He's done multiple units here in Brisbane, and the Jimenez family have 3 generations living here in Brisbane, and this project is arguably their biggest investment for Paul and Glenda. And Paul being in the trades and having built the design with Mr. Trotter so that he can accommodate parking for his work truck. It's a work-life balance issue for them, and I'm happy to see that as per staff's report, they satisfy every single requirement, including the findings necessary for the excavation permit or the grading permit, to be approved. So I would suggest that you consider approving this. I think it's a good project for everybody in Brisbane. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luke. And also the one written communication we had was also from Mr. Bouchard that I want to acknowledge. And my understanding is that we've had no written communication opposed to this proposed grading permit. Robbie, are there any other members of the public in our waiting room?
Yeah, it looks like Commissioner Gomez might want to say something as a public.
Yeah, are you guys hearing me? I don't know if I'm having computer problems or not.
You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, because I don't know what's going on. So again, as a reminder to the community, I'm recusing myself as voting on this project as a commissioner, but as a homeowner and resident in the neighborhood, I think I would just continue on the comments that Luke had. I do think that because this is a smaller lot, that this is a relatively sensible design that fits within the neighborhood style. In the last 10 years, I've seen probably 4 or 5 homes built all within about a 10 to 15 minute walking distance of where I reside. So I just do think that this is an appropriate use of the space. I think it's good for the neighborhood. And so I just wanted to make sure I voiced my comments. And again, I am not trying to sway the opinion of the commission here, and I'm recusing my vote. So thank you for listening.
Hey, thank you, Apollo. All right, Robbie, anybody else in the waiting room?
No.
Thank you. In that case, I will, we should start a timer, I think, to sort of a last minute countdown of 30 seconds before we make a motion to close the public hearing.
Chair, did you make a request to do public hearing? Sorry.
As soon as our timer runs out, I'll make a motion to, or ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
And that's 2 minutes?
No, it was 30 seconds, which is
Okay.
running in about 10 seconds on my watch.
Okay.
So, right. I believe that is run. May I have a motion, please, to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Any second?
Commissioner Patel, you're muted.
You're my only
Sorry,
hope for
second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Motion carries. The public hearing is closed. So we begin any deliberations by the commission on this this item. Commissioner Patel, do you have any further comments or deliberations?
I don't. I think it's a reasonable project. This is the second time it's coming up before us, and I think it looks good.
Commissioner Sayasan?
Yeah, okay. I'm still bugged by something that I kind of want to talk through with you both some more. Okay, so the report says that the plan would allow for 2 compact cars in tandem in the driveway, partially extending into the public right-of-way. So the driveway extends into the public right-of-way. So my question is here, again, it's a new construction that we're allowing to extend into public land. So imagine a scenario where somebody buys an empty lot. They buy an empty lot and say, okay, I'm going to build my dream home there. And they draw up plans, and their plan says, okay, part of my home is going to go a little bit into the public right of way. It's a new development. Can I do it? I mean, would we allow for someone who just buys an empty lot to do that in that scenario?
I guess they already have a 2 full-size garage space, which is required. And so the other 2 parking spots technically aren't required, right? The ones that they're saying that they can use.
Right.
I think
So I think it's just, sorry?
No, go ahead. Finish.
So if that sentence wasn't there, it would comply, right? So there's a little bit of more information that says there's a driveway. They could potentially use that driveway to park a car if they didn't block the sidewalk. I think that's true of all houses in Brisbane. A lot of houses in Brisbane don't follow that rule. And so, yes, sometimes people have to call police and they don't do anything or whatever. But I think technically, like, they only had to have 2-car garage and they have it, right? That's the way I was looking at it.
Well, it's not about them. Oh,
Go ahead.
Do you guys still see me? I'm blocked out.
Yeah, I see you.
We see you.
Oh, okay. I'm not seeing me for some reason. Okay, but I'll
Now
You're frozen.
continue to talk then. Applicant, oh, geez. It's telling me I'm in a 40-minute time limit.
Oh. You're in the old-fashioned
Yes.
Zooming friends and family version.
Yeah, I don't understand.
You're still on our screen.
Oh, okay. You see me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not about the applicant meeting. It's requirement. It's my concern is here. Are we not setting a precedent that anybody that wants to newly develop something can just go into the public right of way? I mean, because we're allowing it here. Whether or not they're meeting some type of city requirement, they just want to go into it so that they can have an extra longer yard or whatever it is. Are we opening up that Pandora's box that people can do that?
So this may just sort of piggyback or be redundant to what Sandeep said. Sorry. He has a voice too. The code requires this new building to have 2 parking places, which it provides indoors, albeit tandem. I always wonder about tandem parking places. What are they really? But it meets the requirement. I'm not sure that the purview of this commission really runs any further than that. If the staff has determined seemingly, fairly, that the development meets the parking requirements of a new home with 2 parking places, the driveway spaces are, you can call them bonus or you can call them irrelevant or moot, because they don't really pertain or apply to the requirements of the code that this development otherwise meets.
Okay, so
I can
then,
understand.
I share your concern. I share your concern about, where the cars really wind up in the real world on a day-to-day basis. I get that. But Brisbane is such a crowded little place up in those hilly streets that the code as written may not really adequately address those problems, but that's not something we can do tonight.
But maybe what Pamela is saying is that sentence in there makes it seem as though we are allowing for parking to be partially extending into a public right of way. And in this case, it doesn't really matter, but maybe what the issue is maybe we ask that sentence be stricken because the plan still complies even without that sentence being in there. Is that what you're saying, Pamela?
no, well, no, I just mean, no part of the development should extend into the public right of way. I don't care if it's driveway or whatever. I mean, the retaining walls also extend. Why can't they just cut it off so that they're not interfering into the public right of way? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is why does any part of the development have to go into the public right of way?
I may be wrong on this, and maybe Ken can explain, but I think all houses with the driveway will extend into a public right of way because you're going from your house into the street. So at some point you're going to be going over a sidewalk or something like that goes into a public right of way. Is that wrong?
Okay.
Through the chair, it's not wrong. That is correct. If you have a requirement for on-site off-street parking, you have to be able to connect to the public right of way in some way. There's no avoiding that. So it has to go somewhere.
So is there any other part of this development other than the driveway that encroaches on the public right of way as proposed?
Yeah, the retaining walls.
The only thing is the retaining walls, and those are something that it's the city engineer's discretion whether he thought those should move back at all, and it's common for retaining walls to exist or to be rebuilt or to be built brand new within the public right of way with a development of a single family home. If it was the commission's desire to get those completely out of the public right of way, it would be more grading to do so.
And the reason why I bring this up is I just want to be consistent, because I remember Mr. Wilson Sierra Point Road house, who we made redo his plans a couple times because he demolished his whole house, built a new house. He wanted to keep his non-conforming garage, but our argument to him was, you're redoing your whole house. Why don't you do that garage as well? We stuck to that. And at least I remember my statement to him was, you're spending all this money, you're demolishing everything, do it right. And so I feel like this property is the same way. It's if they're starting from scratch, why are they starting from going into the public right of way when they don't have to? I don't think. Why? It's a new build. So I just feel like we should be consistent. If we made Mr. Yu just do everything correctly, why aren't we requiring the same thing of this applicant?
Through the chair, just to be clear, so we're talking about a different application that apparently was non-conforming for the garage. I don't recall the details of that other application. There is no part of this application that is non-conforming. There's no exceptions. There's no variances, it's conforming. So what's at issue is, does it meet the two findings? The other two are not applicable.
And can you outline for us on the PowerPoint possibly where the retaining wall is and where the public right of way is? Just so we know, just so we can see.
Let me do a share screen if I. Okay. It's seems to be. Bear with me. I have to minimize somehow to find my PowerPoint buried under this. I'm going to unshare and then go back, and because I got frozen in a spot I don't want to be here. Sorry about that. Okay. All right, so can you see the screen share now?
Mhm. Yes.
Right. So the property line is here, right? Where my cursor is.
Mhm.
The existing wall is out at this light colored line here, and you can see it. This is the existing site plan here. And so it's going to be shortened because you'll have the cut for the driveway, and it's going to be pushed back about a foot and a half, I think was roughly. So it'll be a little bit closer in, which, yeah, that's it.
Do you know approximately how many feet it goes into the public right of way, if you had to estimate?
I believe it's about 2 feet.
Okay. So Pamela, I understand what you're saying. I do agree that we need to be consistent. I think that my analysis of it was that property with the non-conforming garage, it seemed as though that was a completely non-conforming structure that wouldn't be approved today at all. And they were rebuilding a house and leaving sort of like a shack on a property because they didn't want to build a garage into their plan. Versus this, which is there's a retaining wall that's 2 feet into the public right of way, which may not even be there if the engineer says that they need to, somehow move it or fix it. But the entire building and all of the structures where anyone would be or where anyone would put a car is conforming. And the driveway, I don't think that they need that sentence in what they've put in the agenda or in the agenda materials. And the parking does comply with what's required of that structure. So if they hadn't put that sentence in there, I mean, it's an issue with any driveway in Brisbane.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think it's if the development itself is conforming, I think our jurisdiction about that kind of stops. Because this is coming before us really on a grading permit, not on a building permit or a building plan or a design plan.
True. But, I tend to think that when we review grading, we try to look at things holistically. And my concern was if we approve this grading, which includes the driveway, whether or not, they say they intend to use it for a driveway, I think most people will end up using it with the shortage of parking that's there. So by allowing the driveway to be stretched because it's going into the public right of way, I feel like we're aiding a situation where there will be more likely cars parked there that will go into the street and to go into the sidewalk. That's just a concern.
I don't disagree with your concerns. I don't disagree with the problems that we have on these narrow streets. I just think the way the grading permit review criteria are written, we don't really have the latitude to act when the property is otherwise conforming.
Right, unless I would just add, like, I think that the consistency comes in, like, I think we have to address public health and safety. And so I think that when we were looking at the U project with the non-conforming garage, where there may be people or things inside of that non-conforming garage, there's a public health or safety issue. I do agree that parking cars and driveways and making people walk in the street is a public health and concern, a safety concern, but I think that's like a universal Brisbane issue and not just this particular property construction issue.
Yeah, and if I can add one more thing, I think staff and council and other folks are aware generally of issues that exist around the current criteria for grading permit reviews by the Planning Commission. And I think this permit application just highlights one more time what the issues can be that require some review and some consideration about tweaking those. But I don't think that this particular project can be held up under the current standards that we are laboring under.
Okay.
All right. Where are we? We are. I believe we've closed the public hearing. So now may I have a motion to act on this item?
I'll move.
To do what?
Can you state your?
Sorry, I'll move to approve 2021-EX-3.
With the adoption of the proposed findings, I assume. All right, any second?
Well, I've stated my reservations, but you've all made your points, which they make sense. I still have my concerns, but I guess I'll just just go ahead and second.
I share your concerns, Pamela, but we'll still have to call for a voice vote. All in favor? Sandeep?
Aye.
Pamela?
Aye.
I vote aye as well, and the motion carries, and the permit is approved with the findings proposed by staff. Staff, we have one more item on the agenda. Actually, one more item, and then the presentation.
And then a presentation. Yes, so I want Commissioner Gomez to come back. I might text him real quick.
Yeah, are you guys hearing me?
Yep, okay.
I think I had a similar issue. I got blacked out here. I don't know. And I can't seem to turn on my camera, but if you can hear me, I'm here.
All right. I can hear you.
All right.
And can you all see my screen? Yellow
Yes.
screen? Yes, okay. All right. So this is a city-initiated action. The request is that the Planning Commission adopt a general plan conformity resolution declaring that the Toll Brothers' transfer of ownership of certain real property to the County of San Mateo and to the City of Brisbane is in conformance with the city's general plan. The subject Toll Brothers owned property, Northeast Ridge parcels B, C, and F are located between the Northeast Ridge Housing Development and Guadalupe Canyon Parkway. And together they comprise approximately 136 acres. An annotated parcel map, assessor's parcel map showing lands included is shown here with the green areas, and then the up on the top left of your screen, this is an excerpt of the area of the general plan map that also shows these, and these were provided, of course, in your staff report. The resolution would be to comply with state government code, which requires that prior to conveyance of real property to or from a government agency, the local planning agency must first make the finding that such conveyance is in conformance with the general plan. And by way of background, a total of 499 housing units were developed at the Northeast Ridge, and that was done in phases from the 1990s all the way up to 2015. And so the subject parcels are adjacent just north of the Northeast Ridge housing development. And the Northeast Ridge, including these subject parcels and the housing development itself, is located within the San Bruno Mountain Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP, which was established by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for the protection of endangered butterfly species. And that was in the early 80s that was established. And that's in order to allow for the development of housing at the Northeast Ridge and comply with Fish and Wildlife requirements. One of the development conditions was essentially to dedicate parcels B and C, ones in green, as open space to help enhance and maintain that butterfly habitat. So the County of San Mateo is named as the plan operator for the HCP. And so those two parcels will be transferred to the county for dedication to open space. Additionally, between parcels B and C lies a narrow strip of land, which is referred to as parcel F, shown in purple here. And it contains the emergency vehicle access, or EVA, from Guadalupe Canyon Parkway to landmark at the Ridge portion of Northeast Ridge development. And that EVA was completed at the same time as development of the final phase of homes, which is landmark at the Ridge. And it's consistent with the plan development permit. And the city has ongoing authority over the maintenance of that EVA. In reference to the general plan, parcels B and C are designated as open space. And the EVA is part of the plan development residential designation per the general plan land use map that you see here. The land use map and the pertinent general plan policies were provided in your agenda report showing the consistency. So in closing, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt general plan conformity resolution 2021 GPC-1 as provided in the staff report.
Thank you very much, Ken. Commissioners, are there any questions from you to the staff?
No, thanks.
And can you just explain a little bit more clearly what's going to happen to parcel F?
So Toll Brothers owns all three parcels, and parcel F is already developed as a EVA. So it's essentially it's an existing paved roadway that has lockable gates so that it's not just used by residents, it's just for emergency access. And essentially that parcel would transfer over to the city. I honestly don't know all the mechanics of that. That would be the city engineer who would lead that essentially, and council would be involved in taking that. There's no payment on the city's part to take it. Essentially, it would be to us, and ongoing maintenance. Well, it has the city, it's under the city authority. I understand that it would actually be the HOA probably to pay for that, is my understanding. But kind of getting a little bit in depth there. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that was good. That's what I was wondering. And then parcels C and B, those would be the part I didn't catch was that the city would be maintaining those as open space.
No,
Or the
actually, so
county would be.
those would go to the county,
Uh-huh.
and Toll Brothers would be making a payment to the county essentially to get that, essentially to eradicate invasives and that kind of thing. So there's an upfront payment to kind of help get it into good shape initially. And then ongoing maintenance would be the county's responsibility. So while it's within the city's general plan,
Mhm.
just like other parcels that are in this area that have already gone to the county, these would likewise go to the county.
Okay. I guess for the residents that live in that area, if they had complaints about, I don't know, during fire season, they see dead trees and things like that, then they'd have to go to the county.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks. I have no further questions.
It occurs to me, prompted by something that that Ken mentioned about HOA obligations, that I'm going to recuse myself from a vote on this particular item since we have otherwise have a quorum with Napalo present. So if there are any other, and I'm not sure what they are, but in case there are any HOA obligations, as a member of the board of the Viewpoint HOA, I don't want to vote on this either way, or make any comments at all. So if there are any other comments, Sandeep can handle them and then call for a voice vote when appropriate.
Are there any other comments? Napalo, do you have anything to add?
Am I coming through?
Yeah,
Yep.
you are.
Sorry, I am having some IT issues with the internet here. I'm sorry about that. But if you're getting my audio, that's good enough. Really, in reading this and listening, I think I've made my general observations and comments around open space in previous discussions. It seems like a reasonable proposal with respect to the open space, and having it, the way I'm understanding it, would be an extension of the existing county park system. I think Commissioner Patel, you bring up a good point around if there is potentially dead or drying trees or vegetation that could potentially increase fire risk. I think understanding that would be the responsibility of the county is a good point to bring up. And then also just reading here about improving, emergency vehicle access, right? I always think that's an important element, especially just with the way our community is spread out within the mountains. So altogether, this seems fairly reasonable to me. So I don't have any further comments or questions.
Seeing no further comments, should we open it up for public discussion? Is there anyone waiting for to make a public comment?
Yes, we have one. What?
Yeah.
Just a sec, please. I need to take over sharing, so I will do that.
Okay.
Okay, it looks like we have one. Barbara Ebel, I'll give you, is it 2 minutes? 2 minutes, and you have starting now.
Sorry, I was actually just trying to get Robbie's attention so we could try to get set up for my presentation, but the chat is disabled, so I didn't really have a way to do that. Sorry. That's all. It's not actually a comment about what we're talking about.
Do you have my number? It's on the screen. Just text
Okay.
me.
Okay.
Text me or, yeah.
So going back, is there anyone else that's waiting for public comment?
Not at this time.
Do we have to wait? Do we have to put a screen up and wait, or have we been doing it because we've been doing it? We can pass that.
So this is not, a public hearing is not required, but
Okay.
I think it's good form to go ahead and allow public to chime in if they would like to. So
We've been
probably
waiting.
about a minute or almost 2 already.
Okay.
Maybe another minute.
Okay.
We have 15 seconds left. Okay, the minute has expired.
Thank you, Robbie. Is there anyone else that's waiting to make a comment? No.
No.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to close public comment.
And a second?
Should we just do a voice vote?
Sure.
Aye.
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 Okay. Should we open it up for commission discussion at this point? Pamela, do you have anything that you want to talk about in terms of this item?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Apollo?
No. Thank you, Commissioner Patel.
So I guess I'll close the discussion. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion to close, or I guess make a motion to close this discussion and move on to the next agenda item. Is that appropriate?
It would actually be through the chair, sorry, to adopt the general plan conformity resolution.
Jeez. I'm tired. My brain's tired. Okay. Yeah, I thought that's what we just did. I will make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
I'll second.
And then we can take a voice vote. Aye.
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 So the motion passes.
Thank you very much, Sandeep, for filling in. I think that brings us to our next item, which is a presentation by Barbara Ebel about ADUs, correct?
Yeah.
Staff, is there anything else that we do in between this and Barbara's?
No, I don't have the agenda right in front of me, but my recollection, we went next to Barbara's presentation, and I believe she's going to present for 20 minutes, and if there's some Q&A afterwards, we'll take that. or I'll leave it to Barbara if she wants Q&A in the middle. But
Sounds good.
with that,
Barbara, let her rip.
Only if I don't have to stick to my 20 minutes.
Tick tock, tick tock.
All right. So our goal tonight is to educate and inspire. What does a green building look like? And the answer is it looks like any other building. The difference is in how it works and what goes into it. Let's start from the ground up. Our first big decision was to situate the building in the northeast corner of the lot, leaving as much space open as possible. Our contractor said the most cost-effective approach would be to create a driveway near the corner of the lot and have the garage underneath the house. This would have turned a large portion of the area into a driveway and left us with a useless 5-foot pit on the far side of the house. So instead, we changed the design from a one bedroom to a studio so that we could use an uncovered parking space within the setback. Although we also had the option to request a variance from the city, we decided not to go this route because we felt that an off-street parking space was a valuable community asset. We wanted to provide space for an electric vehicle with a charger. With transportation accounting for 40% of all emissions, eliminating off-street parking is an impediment to electrifying transportation, as people cannot buy an electric car if they do not have a place to charge it. Next is the foundation. We designed our project to contain two 4,000-gallon rainwater tanks. Tanks of this scale are needed to provide water. Honestly, the 65-gallon rain barrels are kind of pointless. Not to be discouraging, but they provide less than 1/10 of a unit of water. The average Brisbane home uses 1.9 units of water per person per month. So maybe doing some guesswork, 1,400 gallons per month. The engineer required our slab to be 18 inches thick due to the weight of the water tanks. While the tanks have a loaded weight of 43,000 pounds, they also have a 57 square foot footprint and aren't actually that much heavier than a water heater. It did not seem to me like the 18 inches of concrete with a double mat of rebar was truly necessary. And I would like to suggest that the city prepare a guidance document on slab thickness for a couple of different tank sizes. This could go a long way towards making it simpler and less expensive for people to install these types of very large tanks as part of a project or standalone. We considered other options for our tank setbacks, tank placement. We wanted to put them under the parking pad, but that would have put them within the setback, which isn't permitted. One of our contractors suggested we switch to the underground tanks. However, underground tanks have to resist soil load and the possibility of collapse and resulting liability and are much more expensive as a result. Size also makes a difference in the costs of tanks. For example, a 50-gallon rain barrel costs $100 and pencils out at $2 per gallon for storage. The 4,000-gallon tanks we purchased cost $1,800 and cost 45 cents a gallon. An underground water cistern of similar size would have cost around $12,000 and come out at $3 a gallon, over 6 times the price. The city could consider adding an exemption for rainwater caption within setbacks to ease the placement of large tanks. Because the house was actually built around these two 4,000-gallon tanks, we couldn't apply for the rebate until the project was completed and the rain barrels were functional. We were technically outside the rebate window, but we were very fortunate that Bosco and the city decided to honor our rebate. So a longer timeline for very large projects might be useful in considering the adoption of these large tanks. The formwork was all done with 2x12s. These were then afterwards ripped down into 2x6s, which were used to frame the building. There was still a lot of lumber left over after construction, but the majority was sold. Some of the leftovers were sold to use as forms again by a man who was rebuilding his home after the fires in the north. More was sold to someone who needed to redeck his trailer. Much of the 2x4 stock went to someone named Joy Lamb, who used it to build a tiny house. Some of the remaining also built shelves in somebody's garage. All in all, the lumber from the forms built 2 houses, a second foundation, and several other small projects. All of this material was averted from landfill. This is a good segue in what it took to build a zero waste project. The first step was to not get a dumpster. A dumpster is an invitation to just throw away what you have and get something new. The second thing I learned was to put the new lumber really far away from the work site and to place the sorted scraps in between the new lumber and the work. Even this measure was not enough at the time. I also had to create a place for so this picture is the short pieces are laying down there on the left, and then it's like 6-inch increments, and they're all sorted for use. I also had to create a place for contractors to pile everything, as they don't like to sort their trash as they go. They're all habituated to dumpsters. Considering the price of multiple dumpsters and the typical rate of waste, I feel like this was a big cost win and should be universally practiced. Packaging went into the garbage, saw blades and boxes went to recycling. By far, most of the waste was lumber. I started by scrapping anything smaller than 23 inches, the distance between our studs, which will be explained later. I graded the remaining by size and spent a lot of time pulling nails. Sometimes I just cut off the ends and threw them in the trash. I also spent a lot of time turning warped, split, and junky wood into firewood scraps. We had a free pile of firewood at the corner for the better part of the project. People would constantly come by and take small portions of it. I also took 3 loads of styrofoam to Green Citizen and Burlingame when we got into light fixtures and appliances. The only thing I had a really hard time getting rid of was the leftover sheetrock. I carefully planned out all the sheetrock, spaced and ordered the right number of sheets. Despite my care, I did make a large mistake, and the scraps I did make were too big. I managed to give away some to some other people in Brisbane, but in the end, I used one of my bulky item pickups to get rid of the remainder. In this way, we were able to send almost nothing to the landfill beyond a bit of packaging and some sheetrock. Building 24 inches on center was simple for me because I'm not habituated to building 16 inches on center. It was hard for our contractor. Biggest upset came when the engineer used boilerplate design and laid out the hold downs at 16 inches on center, even though the framing was 24 inches on center, so that some hold downs ended up under a stud and had to be re-drilled and epoxied. A bit about advanced framing technique. The top of the picture, this is standard framing, and the lower half of the picture is advanced framing technique. You can see it's just a lot cleaner looking. AFT has been around since the 1970s. We adopted the standard 2x6, 24 inches on center, California 3-stud corner, and the rigorous positioning of windows between natural stud placement. We adopted insulated headers, and we minimized header size on non-load-bearing walls, so we did not omit them entirely as sometimes recommended. All framing is aligned from roof trusses to foundation. Interior walls do not align with the studs, and we used ladder blocking for attachment. We used ample blocking for fixtures, and the sheetrock went up before the interior walls were framed, providing a thermal break between the interior walls and building envelope. In addition to the use of headers on the ends, we opted to use the double top plate, which is not normally part of AFT. While engineering shows that the perfect alignment of studs will transfer the load, doing so left us with 2 problems. First, the length of boards would have required a complicated set of short studs to accommodate bridge blocking. And second, we had not yet contracted the engineering for the trusses, and their attachment was unknown at that point. Our research showed us that truss attachment to single top plate can be problematic and require customized hardware. There's a widely circulated and much believed misconception that AFT walls have less wood because there are 2 studs instead of 3 per 4-foot panel. The fact is that they have more lumber. In the past, when framing was done 24 inches on center, and now it's done 16 inches on center, it became necessary to add a third stud. So you can see here the original with 2x4 dimensional framing, it's 16 inches square of lumber per 4-foot wall. And then when we went to 3 small studs, then it became 19.25 square inches of lumber per wall. But the AFT that has 2x6, 2x6s actually provides 22 square inches of lumber per 4 feet of wall. In conclusion, advanced framing technique saves money, not because there's less material, but rather because there's less wastage and labor. It offers small improvements in a number of areas, such as 38% increase in space for insulation and reduced thermal bridging. The biggest disadvantage we see is the rigid nature of the structure removes all creativity and joy from an architect's job. AFT is never caught on because it's bad at building very articulated buildings that are fashionable. But it's really good at building ADUs, and I hope we see more of it. One of the framing items not made from recycled lumber was the roof trusses. Those had to be engineered and were brought in by crane to the job site. The trusses had a 15-inch raised heel, which left a comfortable amount of space for R38 insulation and ample airspace in the attic. This also brought the eaves up higher. Most builders use a 24-inch E overhang. The overhangs on this project were 30 inches, which with the gutters gives us almost 3 feet. Here's where the passive solar design comes into this project. There's a magic point in space outside the building envelope where the eaves will allow full sun on the sides of the house in the winter, but also completely shaded in the summer. We were able to hit this magic point in space because of the raised hills trusses. Honestly, I don't think anything should be built in this climate without raised hill trusses. But most projects won't put them in because they take up additional vertical space, and it is common for new projects to use all allowable space within the height restrictions. Planning Commission or City of Brisbane could consider reducing the height limits by 12 inches and adding an automatic exemption for raised hill trusses. There's a reason raised hill trusses are the darlings of the green building professionals. Encouraging their use would result in greener building stock. We also use R38 under the floor. Yeah, okay.
Too far.
You confused me.
Sorry.
This allowed us to reduce our wastage because we were able to double up with the attic insulation and also ensured a comfortable draft-free floor, which greatly influences the occupant's perceived room temperature. I feel it's often overlooked because heat rises and very little is actually lost through the floor. The building is currently speccing out at about 18% above code. We did a few things we didn't get credit for, and we feel certain if we had chosen to throw some money at a consultant and jump through a few more hoops, we could have made Cal Green Tier 2 at 20% above code. Like everyone, at one point we thought we needed gas. We quickly came to our senses. We knew we wanted a heat pump water heater and a mini split heat pump for heating and cooling, and that just left the stove. I experimented with cooking on an induction stove and really liked it. A friend of mine recently reported that he bought an indoor air sensor and his indoor AQI jumped from 20 to 200 when he turned on his gas stove. The more I read and combined with what I already knew about the environmental cost of leaking glass infrastructure, the less we wanted to pay to have gas brought in. Gas has gone the way of the dinosaurs.
Lost.
Yeah, you are. I don't even know where you are either. Okay. There, that's where you're supposed to be. Okay. So, settling on all electric appliances rolled into our choice for solar panels. Rather than installing the 1 kilowatt system required by the Brisbane Reach Coach, we did some guessing about what our tenants might need and settled on 1.6 kilowatts. The Reach Code did exactly what it was supposed to do. Because we had to put in solar anyway, we put in a bit more to meet the needs of the building. Last time I checked with our tenants, their electric bill was running around $12 or $15 a month. By the way, this picture was taken about noon, and you can see the red line, how far down the wall the shade goes. In addition to some unique framing details, we also kept the electrical panels and plumbing outside of the walls as much as possible to preserve the integrity of the insulation. The one place we did have a bit of trouble, though, was with the main panel, which was surface mounted on the exterior of the building. The surface mounted box had places for bringing in the conduit on the top and the bottom, but we wanted the outside to look clean, and we wanted to bring everything in the back of the box. Our electrician said that he could drill holes and buy fittings, so that's what happened. The inspector came by and said, no way, all the holes had to be plugged up, and the electrician was flummoxed. Apparently this is done all the time, but not today. We had to reroute all the wires to come through the wall below the box so that they could enter through the manufacturer provided punch outs. Once done, the inspector told us we could either use a metal or wood enclosure to protect the wires. We couldn't find a suitable metal enclosure that wouldn't have required heavy modification, so we chose to use a wood enclosure. During the final inspection, though, the inspector didn't agree with this. So we got into a bit of trouble. Ultimately, the wood enclosure was approved, but it was pretty uncomfortable for a while. As preparation for this project, I took a number of classes through CCSF, and I also took as many of the BayREN workshops as I was able. One of the things BayREN staff talked about was the movement towards punch list inspections and the resistance of old school inspectors to that. I talked to some other people who have built in town and other cities, and they all agree new construction is stressful. New efficiency codes are a small burden that provide important community benefit with compared with the stress of personalized building inspections. My recommendation is that the city of Brisbane move to the forefront of the building inspection field and then do the most important and cost-effective thing you can do to ease the construction process by either working with CSG or contracting a new company to provide punch list-based inspections. One of the first things you notice about this home is the large walnut tree. We wanted to keep it, but we knew we might not be able to because it is very close to the building site. Various people stopped by and said they hoped we would save it. We lose an average of 2 large trees per month in Brisbane and didn't want to be part of the arboricide. Because the corner of the property was almost a cliff and there was an old retaining wall between the tree and the building site, we only needed to do very limited excavation to place the foundation. In the end, we were able to save the tree with only limbing. One of the last things we did, however, was to install the sewer connection. I told them we were keeping the tree and to dig around the roots, and heaven help me, I went home to go pee. And when I came back, there was a log-sized chunk of root sitting on the ground. The upshot is that we had to take liability for the tree from the city. I'm grateful that the city allowed us to do this, but who really should be responsible is the crew who cut the root. Black walnuts are exceptionally tough. But if we do have to remove it, the $5,000 sewer connection will cost us an additional $5,000 in tree removal. Construction-related root damage was the reason the iconic tree on Palumas had to be removed and may cost us the heritage oak on Kings. It's my most heartfelt request that the city require the text about tree protection zones to be added to every page to the building plans. I originally thought to ask for it to be put in once, but plumbers never look at plans for the foundation. The people pouring the foundation don't look at the utilities. I also would ask the city to reinstate the joint tree subcommittee for one session so that we can add language to the ordinance for the protection of roots, something we botched when we wrote the previous incarnation. Perhaps we should just collect all the other tree protection language in one place for clarity. Something must be done. Before we set out to build, we talked to other people who built here and elsewhere, and everyone said, don't do it because it is so stressful, you'll regret it. Maybe I have a high pain threshold, but I loved it. Yes, it was stressful, but it was also very rewarding. Seeing the building finished and the occupants so happy has been rewarding. Seeing the vision for a little piece of a better world is rewarding. I cannot imagine why anybody would go through the stress of building to build more of the same. If that's what you want, buy something and skip the stress. The reward I had not expected was the outpouring of love from the community. Since I was working there 6 days a week, I got to know people like Christine across the street. And people felt comfortable telling me what they thought of the project. Only 2 people were stumped by the fact that we did not cover the whole lot with building, compared to dozens who were thrilled that we left open space and built a small, cute, relatively affordable home. People love the yard more than they love the house. To an individual, a home is what's inside the walls. To a community, though, a home is what is outside. It's porches and front yards and low fences people can lean on and chat. It's shady trees that temper the air and invite a slower pace. It's the way the home can make a connection to a community simple. Building lot line to lot line makes for an isolating experience. And when I think about on it, I should have known, because many people asked Greg Anderson when he was on the Planning Commission to speak up about this issue. I also wanted to say a few words about the choice to build a full basement and partial attic. A friend once said to me that the greatest loss to American culture was the loss of the attic. As a child, I would visit my great-grandmother's house in Iowa and go through the trunks of old things in the attic and pull sheets off of old furniture and dressing tables and sit there in the half light playing out stories from another world. Attics are a great repository of family history, culture, and just general stuff. Their loss has resulted in people moving their storage into the garages and the cars out onto the streets. A very real but counterintuitive truth is that if you want to reduce parking congestion, bring back attics. Storage space we added to the house makes the small space more livable and saves our tenants $100 a month on a storage unit. It benefits them and the community. The marginal cost to us was small. Last of all, we did it. We were inexperienced, and twice we hired the wrong people. We took over as our own general contractors. We built something that conventional wisdom said would not pencil out. We built this crazy parking pad using non-standard construction details, exceeded Title 24 by almost 20%. We looked beyond our pockets and kept the community and occupants in mind. We built a building that would take care of people and not put demands on its occupants or in the environment. We built to the highest standards on the smallest footprint, and yet we believed we could turn a profit. So the last thing I want to leave you to consider is that when developers come in here and say they have to have this or that, or they cannot make a buck, consider not listening to them. It's just code for a slightly smaller profit. Look at the big picture. Look at how the building is going to impact the community, the city, and the environment. Developers are here and gone. Residents stay for decades, sometimes longer. Houses often stand for 100 years. I don't want to be special. I want this to be normal. I want you to make an impact on our future, and I hope you will consider some of these recommendations. And then just the little building facts here, which I wish I had put up on a slide, but I didn't, is that it's a 560 square foot studio with R38 in the floors and ceiling, R31 walls, LEED compliant cool steel roof. Most fixtures were salvaged secondhand, returns, dead stock, and open box. Low E windows with an R4.3, Energy Star doors, green guard flooring, built-in heat recovery ventilator, low VOC paint, full basement, partial attic, EcoBat formaldehyde-free recycled fiberglass insulation, R7 pipe insulation, off-street parking is EV ready, 1.6 kilowatt hour solar array, 8,000 gallons in rainwater storage, 100% LED lighting except for the heat lamp in the bathroom, Energy Star induction stove, natural lighting with solar tube skylight, Energy Star fridge that was top rated on Energy for life cycle cost analysis, low water faucets and shower, 1.2 flat gallons per flush flapperless toilet. And with that, I went through those slides kind of fast. I went through all of this kind of fast because I'm just barely making my 20 minutes, I think. And I hope you have some questions for us.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for all the time and effort you put into that. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Apollo. Have we lost Apollo?
Are you hearing me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, coming off double mute. Barbara, yeah, appreciate you sharing the journey there and all the steps that were taken to produce I think a really unique project. I think there's a lot of lessons learned there. I think this could be put into a well, might not want to print something up, but maybe a PDF, maybe condense it down to like a PDF, a 2-pager, to share the information. So that beyond just this presentation, that information can be shared. So that's a thought. And then I also think you have something there around the need to revisit roots and how to treat how to approach that with respect to the existing ordinance. I think that's a very good point. So I would second that we should entertain looking in that further. And that's about it. Yeah. Congrats on the project.
Thank you.
Let's see, Sandeep, any questions or comments?
No, thank you. That was really nice. Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah. Commissioner Sayasan, any comments or questions?
No, I'm just very impressed. It looks like you guys put a lot of thought and work into it, and I'm sure it'll help out a lot of people who want to do the same thing. So thank you.
Yeah, I echo all those things. Barbara, is there any place that you have on a site or a email that you want to put out there to share where people want to ask you questions? If folks out in the public sector want to ask you questions or get any input.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
And not to put you on the spot. If you think about it and you want to do that, shoot us a line and we'll maybe get on this. Perhaps the city website might accommodate you as well.
Yeah. You can send stuff to Star Cottage at greenknow, GREENKNOWE.org.
Great. All right. Thank you again very much and congrats. Well done. Let's see, moving on our agenda here. It's getting a little bit late. Any items initiated by staff, Ken?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Any items initiated by the commission? Apollo.
Well, they hear me? Sorry, I'm just gonna have to do that sound check every time.
Yep.
Okay. Do we want to entertain, and maybe we do this when we have a full roster? Do we want to entertain bringing back discussion on with the respective tree ordinance and how to appropriately account for root damage? So I'm just putting it out there so we don't lose track of that.
Okay. Where do
Maybe we bring that up next meeting.
What happened to the subcommittee on that?
I don't recall. Commissioner Patel, I don't recall. Doug and I, we worked on this with. Oh, my memory's a little off. I'm sorry. I know Barbara was involved, and I feel like we had a couple other participants. I just don't remember discussion about mature trees and root damage, regardless of whether they were protected species or otherwise.
Yeah.
Through the chair. Yeah, this was there was the joint subcommittee a couple of years ago. That was Barbara was on it, two commissioners, and then also, as I recall, Glenn Feldman, I think it was, with Open Space and Ecology. And then I went on to City Council and they adopted the tree ordinance. It's been almost 2 years now, if I recall correctly. I think the way that it's not directly addressed, but I know if we treat dead trees the same as we do live trees, in terms of if they're needing to remove a tree and it was a protected species, or they have or it's otherwise protected, it could be permit protected, that it was required for a development, or it could be by the number of trees, 3 or more. Even if they're dead, they're still considered a tree and need to be replaced. So if the tree was killed by root damage, it's still subject to the ordinance.
Paulo, did that address your issues, or did you have some particular proposal?
I don't have a proposal. I need to noodle on this. Okay, so I'm hearing that, if I'm hearing Ken correctly, that it is covered. And so I was mistaken in my previous comments.
It's indirectly covered, I would say.
Indirectly covered, right.
Yeah.
I guess the question is, should the language be more explicit then? Are there gray zones that can be exploited? I guess maybe that's.
I don't know that. I think with trees, it's a living thing. It's like there's almost nothing but gray zones, if you will. It's but I guess if it's something that you want to give some thought to, something specific, and you want to have this agendized for further planning commission discussion, to put a recommendation to council to kind of reopen this, that's the commission's prerogative.
I think I lost the handle on this early on. What specific issue or sub-issue about the trees were you addressing, Paulo?
It was so Barbara mentioned during her presentation that damage to roots of mature trees, and how do we address that within the ordinance if they're non protected species. I think that's what I gleaned. And so I'm just at this hour of the day wondering if we should discuss it further. I think it's a valid point. I mean, I've been seeing a lot of trees getting hacked down, and I've brought this up for years now. I think we have to have a robust plan to improve our urban canopy and our urban forestry in this respective community. If we do not do this, it's going to be a problem. Yeah.
So how do you want to? What's your proposed next step?
I don't know. You know what, Commissioner Gooding, or Chairperson Gooding, I don't know if I have a proposal. I'm actually wanting. I'd like Commissioner Funke to maybe be part. I'd like to maybe just table this for our next meeting. Maybe we can discuss a little bit more when we have the full group.
Okay. Maybe
is that reasonable?
Maybe we can do like a little study session about that as one of the agenda items on the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Any other items initiated by the commission? Commissioner Syson?
No, thank you.
Did I already ask you, Sandy?
I don't know, but I have nothing.
Okay. Thanks. In that case, I believe we have canceled the meeting of September 23rd, correct, Ken?
Correct, but before we go there, I'm drawing a blank on whether you read the appeals process. If not, do you mind doing that?
Not at all. Thank you very much for the reminder. As to the items that were voted on by the commission this evening, anyone may appeal the action of the planning commission to the city council, except where specified otherwise. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk not later than 15 calendar days following the planning commission's decision. Exceptions to the 15-day filing period include the following. Appeals shall be filed with the city clerk within 6 calendar days of the planning commission's action for use permits and variances, and 10 calendar days for tentative maps and advertising sign applications. An application form and fee is required to make a formal appeal. For additional information, please contact the city clerk at 415-508-2110. All right. So with the September 23rd meeting canceled, I believe our next scheduled meeting would be October 14th. Is that correct?
Correct.
Very good. In that case, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Robbie. Good night, all.